You had a defined amount that you would get every month for the rest of your life. That's the way it used to be. Then they changed it to defined compensation plans. And that's when they came up with the 401ks and these other where you had to make a contribution and the company made a contribution and matched it, all right? And then it was managed. But most of those plans were not managed by you and me. Somebody else managed those plans, and they managed them for us. And many of them invested in the stock market. Now you all know what the stock market does. The stock market goes up, and it goes down. Did you check out the news about, 2 days ago, the stock market crashed 500 points? Y'all read the paper, right? You didn't have to read the paper, you could see it all over the news. Stock market crashed 500 points. They talked about people's 401ks. And that's how much value they lost. And they hope to get it back. Now these are people who are maybe near retirement, all right? But that's a form of investing that, number one, you have been trained to invest in. You don't manage it, but one day you hope to retire on it. See how risky that is? Now that's really risky. But for right now, that's all they have out there available. And that may be all that you knew. But after my presentation today, that won't be all that you know. And you can act on it for yourself. Now, I talked about 401ks. Now, let's talk about the government pension plan. Because it's the defined benefit plan, too. It's called Social Security and Medicare. How many of you heard about the debt debate that just got, how can you not hear about it? That just concluded, the debt debate. You know what they're fighting to try to save? They're trying to fight to try to save Social Security and Medicare, all right? Because there's some people out there who want to cut it. They call those entitlements. Heard that term? Entitlements. Well, now, some of us work, and I know I did, and I know some of you have worked all your life and put into Social Security. Well, there's nothing wrong with Social Security. It's just that they haven't managed it right, all right? But there are people who want to cut it. Why? Because they don't want to pay no more taxes. They don't want to pay no more taxes. And there's a struggle now, and there's going to be a struggle to try to save benefits in Social Security and Medicare. Medicare is the health program for those who are retired, for the elderly. There might be something there when I retire. I mean, when I get to the age to use it. And I'm not going to even try it until I get to 70. But for those who are younger than us, there's a chance that it won't be there for them. All right? And then what are you left to? What are we left to? And this is why this is important. This is why I teach these classes. Because it's important for you to teach this to your children, to help them prepare and their grandchildren. Because they can't depend on the government. All right? You cannot depend on the government. But now we've heard this before. Have you? Some of those who are old as I am around here, have you heard this before? In the Bible, Muhammad said, you can't depend on the government, and you shouldn't depend on the government. All right? He said all along, do something for yourself. All right? Even if you're working for someone else, make sure you're doing something for yourself so you have something to fall back on your own that you control. All right? Those words are just as good now as they were when he spoke them. So, let's talk about risk. I briefly talked about risk the last time I spoke. But let's talk about risk. And again, as Mr. Kiyosaki says, it is possible to invest for high returns with low risk. All you need to do is learn how it's done. Just learn how it's done. You know, just like you learn how to speak, just learn how you learn how, and you learn Arabic or anything else you learn. You can learn how to invest and reduce your risk. I said this before, I like to use this example. How many people drove here today? I drove. How many people drove here today? Didn't you have to learn how to drive? Didn't you have to learn to get behind the wheel and put it in drive and push on the, stuff? You had to learn that, all right, to reduce your risk of getting into an accident. It's no different, all right? You embrace investing just like you embrace getting behind the wheel of your car. All right? It's just an attitude. And there's a couple of rules that you need to understand as an investor. And these are what we call the rules of the game. Rule number one, a true investor wants to know how soon will they get their money back. That means when they put their money into something, how soon will I get my money back? All right? And rule number two, now, how much money will I get back after I've made my initial investment? That means how much will my ongoing income be after I've made my investment? All right? Those are two rules that you have to adhere to if you're going to be an investor. All right? But, as Mr. Kiyosaki says, everyone should be an investor. Everyone should be an investor. Not a saver. When you save money, someone else uses your money. When you invest money, you control how the money is used. It's used, but it's used for your benefit. Also, when you invest, you can reduce and save on taxes. On the left side of the quadrant is where people pay the most taxes. That says an employer or employee rather, and a self-employed person who owns a job. On the right side, if you own a system and business or an investor, you pay less taxes. Why? Because it's structured for investors to reduce their taxes, and it's structured for business owners, particularly big business owners, to reduce their taxes. I think you've heard about corporations who've made millions and haven't paid no taxes. They have all these loopholes. And that's something they're trying to close. But for right now, until they close them, again, when we learn the rules of the game, we can play the rules. You know, money is green. In fact, now we look at money as green. On the stock market, they just look at money that goes across the country. It all goes electronically. Billions of dollars is traded electronically. It can be green, purple, whatever. Okay? That's the way they look at it. All right? That's the way money looks at it. But we need to understand that you can learn how to manage just like others do in terms of being investors. So, let me, as I wrap up, I want to leave a couple of things with you and then tell you what we'll be talking about at our next meeting. This is a little article that came from the Tribune not too long ago. The Rich to Get Richer by 2020. Investments controlled by the richest families are expected to more than double in value to $202 trillion by 2020. The ranks of families with more than $1 million will increase by 2/3 to 55.5 million in the developed world, more than double in emerging markets. Now, I plan to be among that 55 million. Do you plan to be? Okay? I plan to be. God's my witness, I do. I plan to be. All right? I hope you plan to be. All right? But it's like anything. You got to have a plan. For those who don't plan to fail. All right? So as I wrap up, let me wrap up with this last presentation right here. Don't be afraid to take a risk. Look what Mr. Kiyosaki says. People who take risks change the world. Let me say this again. People who take risks change the world. Now I put down the first one there. And I'm Elijah Muhammad, and it's not in my program. Didn't he take a risk?
Right.
Didn't he take, what he started? What did he have? Third grade education?
Right.
That's all he had. Didn't he take a risk?
Right.
But we know what was built before those who came in and brought it down. But look what he built. All right? His son, Imam Wazir Muhammad. Didn't he take a risk? Yeah. But all this program, CBC, did he? What did he say? He said, I'm going to get in business myself. I'm encouraging you all to get in business, but I'm going to take the lead. And he showed us what could be done. Am I correct? He showed us what could be done. All right. So what I'm saying, also, don't be afraid to take risks. People who take risks change the world. All right. Let me leave you with that. And the greatest factor to embrace risk is have strong faith in your Creator Allah. You see, it really should be easy for us. It really should not be difficult for us.